Hi there, good noon and we are back with another session. यार एक्चुअली ना एग्जाम से एक दो दिन पहले सेशन तो क्या सेशन तो बहाना है. द आइडिया इज सो दैट वी कैन रिमेन देयर फॉर यू right till the very last moment, and actually even thereafter if you look at it, right? So today we talk about XAT, common challenges that people generally face in the XAT, along with a few last minute tips for the things that you need to do on the D-Day, right? And in case you happen to have any question, any concern, actually this is what that session is about. Make sure that you drop it down below. So I welcome you to BYJU'S exam prep channel dedicated to your success as an MBA aspirant. My name is Vikrant and I am here to ensure that you go on to get or deliver your best in the exam. And we do that through taking care of some of the questions, some of the issues, some of the confusion and ambiguity that we have received from our students over the course of last few days. So let us dive into that, man. Let's see. So first up, paper pattern. So in case you do not know, there has been an important update, an important change to the paper pattern, and here is that change. So the total time for part 1 is no longer 165 minutes. Now it is 175 minutes. So there are 10 additional minutes that are given to you. So mind you, XAT is already an exam which is pretty generous with the time, right? In fact, if I look at it, considering that it also has these vocab and grammar questions which are usually not very time consuming, I generally say that you end up getting almost 3 minutes per question of the ones that you want to attempt. But now they have made it even easier for you by adding 10 more minutes to it. And there is one more question added to the decision making section. So instead of 21, now there are going to be 22 questions. What is the implication? So for the last couple of years, we knew that we are getting 7 sets of 3 questions each. So this time around, they may reintroduce, and the operative word here is may reintroduce those single questions, or maybe one of the sets can turn out to be bigger and it can have 4 questions, 6 questions, whatever. So be mentally ready for those changes as well. Okay. And otherwise, there is no change in part 1. Then in part 2, they have added 5 more minutes. Sorry, I just needed to make this 32. So there are, I actually left it because I wanted to write it manually. 25 minutes earlier, and now you have 5 more minutes available here. And another change is that instead of 2 essay topics, you now will get 3 essay topics to choose from. So 1 decision making question added, 1 essay topic added to choose from. You'd still be writing, of course, only 1 essay, but you'd have 3 topics to choose from. 10 more minutes given to you in part 1, 5 more minutes to you in part 2. Although technically the part 2 will now become part 3 because you'd have this in between part, which is mock keyboard testing. So because in essay writing, you're supposed to type, what if there is a key of your keyboard that does not work? What if you realize it when the test starts? So you have those 5 odd minutes where you can use the entire keyboard and ensure and check that all the keys are functioning properly. So you get 5 minutes for that as well. Okay, now over to your questions. Saheli says, I don't score good if I do not start with decision making. Absolutely. You want to start with decision making, start with decision making. Whatever you are most comfortable with. So I'm sure you have used this strategy in the mocks so far. If it is working for you, that's what matters. Then, Saheli, at this score, you should actually, if you score this much in the actual exam, you'd be getting a call. Okay. They say, will the paper be hard? Saheli, the exam is already labeled as a moderate to difficult exam. So XAT has always had these questions or at least some of those questions could have an absurdly high difficulty level. Okay, so we are mentally prepared for it. But that said, if the paper is tough, it is tough for everyone. And what happens in that case? The cutoff drops down. You need to score fewer marks to get that same high percentile, right? So I don't think you should really be worried. XAT King 30 minutes, 25 plus 5. It is not of 15 minutes, it is of 30 minutes. So earlier, until a day before yesterday, it was supposed to have 25 minutes. Yesterday, XAT on its official website has issued a set of directions, set of instructions, which very clearly mention that so if you go to the website xatonline.in, you'd notice there's a bar that scrolls down below. So on that bar, you would see this link which says exam specific instructions. And those exam specific instructions say that part 1 is 175 minutes, part 2 is 5 minutes mock keyboard testing, and part 3, your GK and essay part now, will be allotted 30 minutes. So 25 GK questions and then 1 out of 3 essays, right? Where they've prescribed you a limit of 250 words. So pretty generous now, pretty generous. Okay, so moving back. Okay, so what is exactly new? There are plenty of things that change. Okay, so a lot of people write the CAT and then straight away write the XAT, but then there are a lot of you who have in between written NMAT and SNAP and IFT. So you are hopefully better equipped mentally, but then what changes? The difficulty level. So when we compare it to CAT, the exam has a tendency to be more towards the difficult side. Although I believe this year, going by the CAT, I feel that both of them are likely to be at par. Then the duration. So instead of a typical 2-hour test, you are writing a 175-minute test plus a 5 minute of mock keyboard testing and then another 30 for GK and essay. Then you have a decision-making section, which is new. There is no sectional time limit, which makes the test-taking strategy a little more challenging. And you have 5 options for every question. Moreover, unlike the CAT, where we believe that you need to have 99.3 percentile plus to get calls from some of those older IMs, here the calls even from XLRI start happening at around 94, 95 percentile. I think it was 93 percentile for BM for a general category male engineer candidate last year, right? So calls are at lower percentile, and as a result, you don't really have to start, you don't still have to focus on 99 percentile all the times. So it's more about getting a 95 percentile, which means that a 99 percentile is around 44, but then when you think of a 95, you'd actually be getting it at around 36. So you notice there's a lot of difference. Then some more new things, marking scheme, you already know that. And there is this penalty for leaving questions unattempted. Every question that you leave beyond 8 will attract a penalty of minus 0.1. And as a result, people at times have certain confusions in their mind. Sahiri, you are unable to score in VARC, Kashish says. Kashish, come to think of it, this exam will carry 76 marks, right? If you can get 40, that'd be absolutely amazing. So as long as you can scrape together 8, 9, 10 marks from VARC, you should actually be good to go. So don't worry. Every exam gives you an opportunity to play around your strengths. Do that and you're generally better off. So what challenges does it pose? Challenge number 1 that a lot of people have asked me about is figuring out the number of attempts. Sir, how many should I attempt? No, because there's this confusion about what score, at which score will I get a call and whatever. So let me make it easy for you. So my suggestion is that you should start off by targeting this. So in decision making, let us begin by targeting 12 attempts. In the verbal part, target 13 attempts. In Q&DI, target 14 attempts. So this bit will generally ensure that you are able to meet your sectional cutoffs here. This bit ensures that you're able to meet the sectional cutoffs. And then, just to add to what I was telling Kashish, let's see, at 80% accuracy, this should generally help you meet the sectional cutoffs. But what is the total number of questions that we are getting so far? 38, right? And at 80% accuracy, you would want to attempt around 45, 46 questions. So now you need to go ahead and attempt 6 to 8 more questions from the section or sections of your choice, and you would be a very realistic candidate for getting the, you'd be with a very realistic chance of getting a call from XLRI. But mind you, when I suggest these numbers, I am looking at the past trends. A day after tomorrow will be a new paper. You need to judge the difficulty level and then adjust the expectations accordingly. I remember that way back in 2001, back in the day, unlike the other exams, that used to have sectional time limit. So you could not even go to any other section within that allotted time. So in 2001, or was it 2000? I think 2001. It was either year 2000 or 2001. I went to the quant section and I could not make any sense out of it. It's exceptionally difficult paper. And a lot of good candidates, they panicked. They're like, oh, I know nothing. And then they tried to live up to that preconceived notion that, oh, I need to attempt at least this many questions. As a result, they ended up getting a lot of those questions wrong. In fact, that was a year when I saw some of those lesser prepared students. They looked at the section, they smiled, they said, "Arey, I knew मेरे को कुछ आने का ही नहीं था, अपने आराम से चलो time बिताना इसी section में, जितने questions कर सकते हैं कर देते हैं." So they sat down, they solved 6-7 questions and they managed to get those right as well. And they cleared the sectional cutoff because of 6-7 questions, and they ended up getting calls. Whereas the people who had that preconceived notion, they ended up making many more mistakes. As a result, they could not clear the sectional cutoff. So adjust your sails once you see the exam tomorrow. Okay. So he says, what is a safe score for non-engineering female general? Gaurav is saying 30. I think last year, I think last year it was around 29 for HRM. And year before that it was, I think, 27, if I'm not mistaken. So, but if you talk about a safe score, I normally add 4 to 5 marks. So I'd usually say that you should target 33, 34, if not more. And mind you, there is some weightage of the XAT score in the final selection matrix as well. So more score would not hurt. So here is some of those previous year papers are, man, they are challenging. So this is a suggestion. So do this and then get 8 more questions from the section or sections of your choice. So going by the difficulty level that we witnessed so far, challenge number 2, test taking strategy. So there is no sectional time limit. So I tell you what I do. I give 45, 40 and 45 minutes. So this is what I give to verbal and logic. This is something that I give to decision making, and this is something that I give to QA and DI. This is my round 1. So, which basically means that once the 45 minutes are over, I start from VA, okay? So once the 45 minutes are over, whichever question that I'm working on, I will finish that question and then I will move over to the decision making section. Right? And I'll give myself 40 minutes here. And in decision making, it is so important to adhere to this time limit. And once you sit down for the exam a day after, you'd realize in the decision making section, you don't even realize where the time goes. Part of the reason is that you get a fairly lengthy, detailed information, which at times reads like a story or a puzzle. So it's actually engrossing, it is involving. So the time really flies in this particular section. So it's important for you to adhere to this limit, 40 minutes. Once the 40 minutes are done, whichever question or set that you're working on, you will finish that. And then you'll move over to QA and DI. Now within this, if I find the paper easy, for example, my first target in verbal is, let us say that I'd attempt 13 questions. So if I end up attempting those 13 questions sooner, I will move out. In DM, my initial target is 12 questions. So if I'm through with those 12 questions, I'll move out even before 40 minutes. So once you go through this, what is the equation like? You have spent 130 minutes and now you have 40. So we have 175 minutes, right? So you still have 45 minutes. So you have gone through the entire exam. You have hopefully managed to clear the sectional cutoffs. And now you know which section, which questions are easier for you. So now you can choose to spend this time on that section, on those questions. So for somebody, let's say quant is not your strength. Okay, at least have a look at DI, right? And then solve some of those quant questions that you can, and then you can choose to devote that extra time to maybe decision making, perhaps verbal ability, logic, RC, right? Or maybe you are somebody who's not very comfortable with decision making or not very comfortable with VRC. That basically means that you can add 30 of these 45 remaining minutes to quant. Sit here, attempt it for 75 minutes. And in those 75 minutes, I'm sure you'd be able to attempt some 7-8 questions. Typically, you will find some 7-8 doable questions, and add to it, don't forget that you also have DI. Last year, we in fact even had an analytical reasoning kind of set. So maybe you can solve that puzzle when time is not a constraint, right? So to summarize, use a round-based approach. This is the time limit for round 1, within which you target meeting those quotas. Okay. And after that, you can have your round 2 and round 3 to maximize your score. Mind you, at around 45 marks, you'd easily go beyond 99 percentile. You're not even targeting that. Okay. So after the first round, just go ahead and maximize, devote those 45 minutes wisely. Challenge number 3, dealing with this negative marking for unattempted questions. I mean, I think we have addressed this query in various sessions that we had, but we still keep getting this question, sir, ये negative marks भी तो कर देंगे, छोड़ेंगे तो क्या करें, क्या नहीं करें. So I generally say that, okay, although there is a negative marking for unattempted questions beyond 8, it does not mean that you start taking blind guesses, that you just look at a question, you know nothing about it, and you mark some answer, some random answer there. No, do not do that. However, what I generally recommend is that if you have managed to eliminate 2 to 3 answer choices, so come to think of it, when it comes to reading comprehension questions, when it comes to critical reasoning questions, when it comes to quite a few decision making questions, you'd normally be able to eliminate 2 to 3 options. So if you have managed to eliminate 2 to 3 options, but now you are not certain of which one to choose of the remaining options, in that case, attempt. So if you've managed to boil it down to the last 2 answer choices, or maybe even last 3, mark whichever answer that you want to mark. However, if you've not narrowed it down to the last 2, skip. And I think even math will justify it. Now imagine that you leave 25 questions unattempted. So if you leave 25 questions unattempted, you'd get a penalty of 1.7 marks. right? Now, what if out of these 25 unattempted questions, what if there were, let us say, 7 questions where you could at least boil it down to last 2 or last 3? So situation is, whatever score that you were getting, you deduct 1.7 marks from it. But what if you end up attempting those 7 questions? So now you are leaving 18 questions unattempted, which basically means a penalty of 1.0, right? And out of those 7 questions that you attempted, where you guessed essentially, let us say, looking at the worst case scenario, you got 6 wrong and 1 right. So this is +1 and this is -1.5. So the net result is you are losing 0.5 marks, right? That's the worst case scenario for you, right? So what we are doing now is that whatever your score was on the basis of the earlier questions that you attempted, plus you look at these 7 questions, you losing 0.5 here, and you're adding this 1 here. So you notice that you are actually losing 1.5 marks. Whereas if you did not take those 7 guesses, you would have lost 1.7 marks. And that when you are not particularly lucky when it comes to your guesses, right? You're not particularly lucky. You end up getting only one of those right, which is highly unlikely. Imagine if you get 3 of these right and 4 of these wrong, the equation becomes significantly favorable. So from -1.7, you'd actually reach to around +2. So that's a difference of almost 3-4 marks. So imagine. So since they have introduced this penalty, let us incorporate it into our matrix. Okay, let us use that to increase our risk-taking appetite a bit. So let's take some chances, not blind chances. You know nothing about a question, you don't even know which topic it belongs to, they're randomly marking an option. No, that's not something that I'd recommend. But if you've eliminated, if you've spent that much of thought, please make sure that you take those guesses. Sahili, I'd have to check. SPGen used to accept the XAT score until the last year. I don't think it is accepting the XAT score this year. Okay. LP, can you send the question to somebody in the team? You can go to a Telegram group, just leave the question there, I'll get back to you. Otherwise, it'll deviate us from the topic. So challenge 4, dealing with the decision-making section. We have given you ample, adequate practice sessions on that. But once again, in every decision-making scenario, there is something that you want to achieve. You have an objective or a set of objectives to meet. So always start off by defining your objective. Then every option may involve some kind of cost, some kind of regret. Try to quantify that. Just see which option happens to have a higher cost vis-a-vis the rest. So compare. Then every option may also involve certain risk. Try to quantify that risk. And we're just talking about Goldilocks categories here, okay? So you don't have to come up with an exact number. You say, okay, the risk is high, low, medium, cost is high, low, or medium. Just figure that out. And finally, let us not forget that our ethics are tested rather thoroughly. So any option which is unethical, just rule that out and look at only the remaining options. So in arrangement questions, you know that any option which allows you to meet all your objectives with no cost, no risk, obviously becomes one. But as the cost increases, as the risk increases, as the compromise increases. So what is compromise? You may have multiple objectives to meet, but there are options which say that, okay, you won't be able to meet all your objectives. You'd be able to meet only some of your objectives, right? So for arrangement questions, basically as the cost increases, it goes down. As risk increases, it goes down, it drops down. As compromise increases, it drops down. So you use these matrix basically to arrange them. LP posted in Telegram group, my name is Vikrant, tag me there, I'll get back to you. Okay, I'll get back to you in the evening. Don't worry, yaar, we are there. The whole point behind a group is that we can take care of all your questions, even those which may not be directly related. You've written something really big. I haven't even read it. I just looked at it and said it deals with NMAT, talks about NMAT exams. So we just look it up, okay? Challenge number 5, the last one, staying focused throughout. 3 hours, 30 minutes of intense focus. Can we do that? I know those of you who've been writing mocks regularly, you can, but here are some of the things that I generally find very useful. Some of them, of course, happen before the exam. So no heavy meal. Okay. Take a heavy breakfast and then just take a bit of carb before the exam. A bit of carb, a bit of protein. Do not eat till you are full. Right? When we are a little hungry, our brain is actually sharper. So I'm sure you do that. Besides, in the exam, stretch. Whenever possible, just when you think that, you know, you need a bit of focus, just stretch, take a couple of deep breaths and then come back. It is very effective. And you can create opportunities. Yeah, if you want to ask for the rough sheet, instead of sitting there and asking, get up and ask for it and use that opportunity to stretch your limbs a bit. And then water. Water. People use all sorts of stimulants. Okay, they drink their cup of tea, they drink their cups of coffee, and they use them for focus. But the truth is that water itself, you carry your own water bottle, right? So water itself can give you that additional boost for the next 20-30 minutes. In fact, for exams like XAT, for really long exams, you talk about GMAT, you talk about XAT, I avoid caffeine, and the reason is that once you consume caffeine, it gives you a high, but then after around 3 hours, you start hitting that drop in your attention. So caffeine allows you to focus for a while, but once that caffeine starts moving out of your system, there is a crash. And you are supposed to enter the examination hall typically an hour before. Right? And then there is so if you're writing a 2-hour exam, I think caffeine will still make sense. But in a 3-hour, 30-minute exam, your caffeine will run out midway. So there is no point relying on that. So avoid caffeine for something like XAT. As a result, you won't have that caffeine crash coming in. Shresht, what did I miss? So far, if you find the session useful, do press the like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Yeah, come on. And keep sharing your questions with me. Keep sharing your concerns with me so that I can any XAT related concerns with me. Last time around when I asked this, some people started talking about some really personal stuff. Okay, and here are some of those D-Day tips for you. Leave metal, carry metal. So if you have any metallic object on your body, then that metallic object stays home. Year after year after year, I see people taking care of their chains, their rings, their earrings, their belts. Dude, no belt, no earrings, no chain, no rings, no watch, nothing. So don't carry metal. Carry your metal. Carry this mental toughness that you have. Carry this warrior spirit that you have with you. Okay, just show your true metal. You know, the Superman, Superwoman inside of you. Just carry that. But no metal. Then please ready your admit card. Remember, you are supposed to paste a photograph, paste it there. And then make sure that you put your admit card along with a valid photo ID card, along with a pen, sanitizer and gloves, and keep them all ready to go with you. Okay, and then don't forget to carry an extra photo. Even in the IFT exam, when I went to write it, I realized there was 5-6 people who were not carrying an extra photo, and then they had to rush around to somehow get a copy of their photograph. So although the admit card in XAT says that in case the photos do not match, then you carry it, but I'd say it's always better to be safe, right? So please make sure that you carry an extra photograph. And Arogya Setu app. Remember this app that quite a few of us used way back in December 2020, right through 21. So make sure that you carry your Arogya Setu app and you are able to show that you lived in a risk-free zone. Of course, there is a workaround. Say if you don't have a smartphone, there is a self-declaration form that you fill for actually most of these exams nowadays. But in case you're carrying your smartphone along, just download and install the Arogya Setu app today and then show it to them when you enter. Of course, now that they're asking you, they'd also make an arrangement for you to leave your cell phone somewhere. Okay, so you'd go ahead and make use of that particular facility. Sahili, they have not mentioned anything specific, but to be on the safe side, take a color printout. Okay, then, okay, Hasib has a question. Is writing essay important? See, your essay will not even be, so when I say important in what respect? So it has no bearing on your getting a call from XLRI or for that matter any other college. However, if you are shortlisted for the next round, then and only then your essay will be evaluated, and it can, I'd say it can play a role in your final selection. We don't know what sort of weightage is given to your essay or the score that you have in essay, but it can play a role. So go ahead and do your best. And frankly, by now you attended sessions, right? Savitri ma'am took this wonderful essay writing session, I think some 3-4 days ago. Just stick to a basic template, okay? There are 3-4 templates that you use to write essays. So look at the essay topics, decide on which one you have the most masala for, then determine which template you want to use, and the template will guide you. You definitely be able to do a decent job. Then GN says, BYJU'S mocks sufficient? They're sufficient. Yeah. Previous year paper along with their mocks, and now you just have one day to go in between. If I were you, I would not even write any more mocks. अब कौन सा, अब मॉक्स देने की जरूरत नहीं है यार, अब तो चिल कर. EWS non-engineer male best score for getting calls from XLRI. Ganesh, a day before yesterday, GB took a rather detailed session. In that session, GB went on to share the cutoffs that the cutoffs for the last couple of years. And if you look at that, I think you'd have a fairly detailed idea. So male, non-engineer. So in BM that won't make much of a difference, but I'd say you should still, to be on the safe side, I'd recommend that you target a score of around 35 still. And you can go through the relevant part of GB's session where we had that slide, and that'll give you help. Yes, Jai Suman, if you look at your admit card, your admit card has this pointer. In fact, it mentions Arogya Setu app. Yes, absolutely. You can use pestle trick that. So when you say pestle is a trick to generate ideas. Okay, this is a trick that helps you generate ideas, and there are more. Okay, so pestle is one, right? Another one that I'm very fond of is VAP approach, viewpoints of affected parties, KW approach, but pestle generally helps you tap a lot of those ideas. When I say framework, what I mean by that is that you can write a compare and contrast essay. You can write a for or against essay. Remember, so on and so forth. So what kind of essay you plan to write. Cause effect essay, SPSC essay, whatever. So that's what I meant. So Pestle is otherwise very effective for tapping into all the relevant ideas that you have in your mind. But once you have those ideas, you need to put them in an organizational framework. So if I say Pestle is about getting the building material, framework is the map using which you use the building material to build the basic outline. New version said do not carry phones. So you carry your phone when you enter and then you leave your phone. But then they've given you an alternate. There is a self-declaration form. You can fill that out too. So don't worry. Ayushi, what is the role of unattempted questions in negative marking? Ayushi, it is very easy to understand. You know that there is something called incentive, right? So an examiner has very carefully created, thought over and added 76 questions in the paper. They would ideally want you to attempt all of them. Because they believe that those 76 questions, if a person attempts a fair number of those 76 questions, then they get a fair idea of your competencies. So they are adding this additional layer of incentive to ensure that you go on to attempt more of those questions. Of course, another way of doing that is to have no negative marking whatsoever. GK does not have any negative marking, so we are going to attempt all the 25 questions there, isn't it? But but then in that case, a lot of people can start attempting questions left, right and center without any thought. They may not want us to do that. So they've just added a mild incentive to ensure that we take a little more risk. So my guess is when I write XAT, I typically, when I walk out of the examination hall, I realize that I normally end up attempting around 6 to 8 extra questions that I otherwise would not have attempted. And typically all of these 6 to 8 extra questions are in the verbal or the decision making sections. Quant is not my strength, so I generally do not even guess there. So it is just, Ayushi is just an incentive to ensure that you take a little more risk. And then please leave well in advance for the test center. Dudes, this year, the XAT center is perhaps the remotest center that I'd be going to write the exam. So if I drive from my house, it is going to take me 2 hours and 10 minutes, provided I do not have traffic. So I plan to leave 2 hours 30 minutes before. And those of you who are not driving, in case you're taking a cab or it's a new town for you, man, I don't know. Such a remote location. Yeah, I looked at the map and I like, why is it showing that I'm going to Jajjar? Then I had to zoom out and I realized that, okay, it is halfway between Gurgaon and Jajjar. Technically, it is NCR. But one really good thing that XLRI, the XAT guys have done this year is that they have given you a link in the admit card that opens the Google Map location of the center. I mean, seriously, there are times when you put in the name of that center along with the location on the Google Map and you still have that tiny bit of hesitation at times. You want to double check that it is the same place. But that link is such a nice addition. That's such a nice thing to have. I think, the XAT guys do deserve a like for this. You can show that by liking this video. So that's certainly very commendable. So I'd actually write to the people that I know there and I'd tell them that it's such a fabulous gesture. So make sure that you leave well in advance. And that's about it. Additionally, during the course of the exam, I use the rough sheet to track questions. So on my rough sheet, so here is an A4 size paper. So what I typically do is that I will basically have a column here. Now, if there is this heading called skip. So any question that I look at and I realize this is a question that I'm not going to attempt, I will put that number here, okay, be 23, 27, whatever. I leave it here. so that I won't even go back to that question again. And then there are these questions that I've marked for review. But then when I mark a question for review, I'm typically confused between 2 or 3 options, right? So I'll write the question number, question 7, and I am confused between A and C. So that the next time when I revisit that question, I know that I'm supposed to look at only these 2 options and not the remaining 3. So that makes the entire process efficient for you. Oh, new version, Bahadurgarh, man. Where is my center? Yaar, let me have a look at my admit card. I'll tell you where my center is. And who knows, maybe I'd get to meet some of you there. So I am headed to St. Andrew's Institute of Technology and Management, Farooq Nagar. And Gaurav, you had to travel for 3 hours, man. I don't know. Is it? And in fact, all the other colleagues and students that I'm talking to, everybody is telling me that their centers are far off. So maybe they have used certain criteria, which means that they had to take up a greater number of centers or whatever. But it's thankless, but at least you have the right Google Map location to guide you, if nothing else. Okay. So that's it from me. And let's not forget that the moment you're done with the exam, even before you reach home, we will start with our analysis. So we'll start giving you the first impression. Saral sir will bring it to you. And then later, Gautam and Srinivas sir will join in to give you a detailed analysis of the exam, which will answer every conceivable question that you would have. Okay. So the answer key will also follow, but at least all the expected cutoffs, difficulty level, exam pattern, good attempts, all of this will be answered. And let's not forget that practice puts brain in your muscles, and that is why we bring in practice sessions for you. Remember, every day at 12, 1 and 3, we ensure that you are able to practice more and more questions with you. Combine that with the mock papers and you're done. And in case you know somebody who's thinking of preparing for CAT 23, or maybe you are a 23 aspirant, but you're here in this session out of curiosity, we have already started our batches. In case you want to join us, don't forget to write the scholarship test that we have, right? And you can treat it as a mock XAT, right? Just sit down, it'll take barely half an hour for you, and then you can be in running. And once we are done with XAT, we will train our guns, we'll focus our attention on CMAT and Maharashtra CET, along with some TISNET sessions for those of us who are targeting TISNET. So at this very channel, we'll take you through TISNET, Maharashtra CET, CMAT sessions too. And then we'll also have a lot of dedicated preparation material on the app as well. So that's it from me today. And 110 kilometers, Jaydev, that's brutal, man. Anushka, can you share your doubt again? And we are wherever you are, okay? We are at all of these places. So if you have more questions, even when the session is over, you realize that you still have more questions, do not hesitate. Drop in the questions at other locations and we do our best to help you. Did anyone get a shortlist mail from any? Ram Prasad, not to my knowledge, not yet. Not yet. The result actually came around rather rapidly this time around. But shortlisting mail, none that I have heard of so far. Anushka, can you share your doubt again? I'll see if I can locate it in the interim. Then Zatitude. Oh, nice. Village Swada near Tikri. Oh, Savda. Nibedita, you are lucky, just 16 kilometers. I mean, even 16 kilometers is a lot, but talking to others where 110 kilometers. In my case, I think it is at least 60 odd kilometers. Okay, his attitude is saying that I am Vizag results are out, so maybe that. I is actually fairly occupied for the last 2-3 days. So any other question? Otherwise, I know that you have put in a lot of effort, and I have absolute faith in your ability. Just go out and do your well a day after tomorrow. I am sure you'll get a really great score. और जैट के आसपास आकर के ना बट थोड़ा सा रिलैक्सेशन होना शुरू हो जाता है ना. वो बोलते हैं ना जिंदगी इम्तिहान लेती है, पर जब आप कैट की तैयारी करना शुरू करते हैं तो इस फेज में आके ना ऐसा लगने लग जाता है कि यार इम्तिहानों ने जिंदगी ले ली है हमारी. तो जैट के पास आकर के आई स्टार्ट गेटिंग दैट फीलिंग दैट ओके नाउ द प्रोसेस इज वाइंडिंग डाउन. So you're done with that, and then you just have whatever you needed to prepare for, you do that. After that, nothing new needs to be added to your prep, and the remaining exams, except for maybe Maharashtra CET, can actually be delivered with more or less a similar set of efforts. So in case you enjoyed this session, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will look forward to hearing from you and meeting you very soon. So have a lovely weekend and an even better exam, right? So that's it from me. Stay safe, stay focused. All the best. Take care.